Hello, it's Scott Manley here with episode 85 of Interstellar Quest. We are ready to leave the moon. We have moved all the crew of the Outlander over to the Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez. So we fire up the vertical lifting engines, and as soon as we're clear of the ground, we fire up the horizontal engines, the main fusion thermal engines, which are going to accelerate us up to orbital velocity. The main thing is we want to make sure that we get enough vertical speed that we're not going to smash back into the moon. Now, of course, those little engines use fuel about 10 times faster than those horizontal engines, but the horizontal engines don't provide quite the same level of thrust. Though, to be honest, I think we're going to do pretty well here. We're accelerating upwards at about half a G. So now we're going to switch over and complete our transfer into orbit. Now, of course, I've been using these thermal engines. These are thermal engines where the idea is that the reactor in there heats the propellant, and then, you know, the expansion of the propellant drives it out of the back. Now, the problem is, this is running off of liquid fuel and oxygen. Which means there are oxidizers, so they're supposed to be combusting the fuel and then injecting it into this chamber, and then the heat gets heated up by the fusion power. The problem is, I see the specific impulse, and if you have to read that in terms of a temperature, because of course the specific impulse goes higher as the temperature goes higher, then that would imply a temperature of tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of Kelvin. And given that there has to be a heat exchanger of sort, I don't know how you could contrive a system where you are heating gases with a physical object that would vaporize. Regardless, we have made a textbook escape from the moon and transfer back to Kerbal. And okay, I want to get rid of some of this excess mass. See this monopropellant? It is only really there for the plasma engines, and we're not really going to need those. We might need a bit for the reaction control system, but I think I can dump 1/3 safely, and we can dump more of it once we're closer to the planet, but if I lighten my load, then it will reduce the stresses on the aircraft during re-entry. Okay, so our re-entry is not going to happen right away. We're going to slow our orbit down. We're coming in at 40 kilometers, fold away the radiators, obviously. And we're going to take a high attitude approach to make sure that we maximize the amount of drag. We're coming down at 3 kilometers per second, and we want to go through the upper levels of the atmosphere. We don't want to go too far down, but also, by doing it at this altitude, it does give me a bit of time to figure out if things go wrong. And there we go, things going wrong. Now, what's happened there is my aircraft has decided to go, well, ass first, basically. So we need to move the fuel forward so that we become a little more stable into the airstream. Just basically by taking that high attitude approach, we found out that our center of drag in that configuration was in front of our center of mass, which would torque us the wrong way. And while the center of drag and the center of lift are not necessarily in the same place, it is a pretty good approximation. Especially since when things go wrong, your center of drag will be far more important than your center of lift. Now you see I've passed through periapsis, but we want to, of course, maximize the amount of time I spend here. I'm making adjustments to my wheels to make sure that I can actually land this thing, because landing with the same steering configuration we had on the moon would probably be bad. So, got ourselves all set up. We're now going to just cruise out of the atmosphere. Our apoapse height is going to be over 300 kilometers. And we're going to take a few orbits to break ourselves down into a proper low orbit so that we can actually pick our landing site. In between each orbit, we're going to make some adjustments to the periapse to make sure we don't fall too deep into the atmosphere. We have plenty of time. We have to wait for the planet to rotate around so that the Kerbal Space Center is going to be during daylight. Second pass was dropped my apoapse to about 200 kilometers. So we come around for one last pass. Again, making some quick adjustments. And on the third pass, I actually overdo it a little. You see my apoapse actually dropping, so we fire up the engines just to make sure that we don't fall into the atmosphere. Because, well, not that it couldn't handle flying around the planet at that altitude. We've certainly done it before when we returned in a polar trajectory. It just takes a really long time because you can only do it at 4 times time acceleration. So back into space we go for final approach. And so we come around for our final pass, our final approach, and this is the real test because we are going to be descending into the atmosphere and we have to lose sufficient velocity before we descend too fast and before we get overheated by the rigors of re-entry, let's say. So we have reaction control system here to help us take control of everything here. Now, one of the problems you'll notice here is that the rear, well, you see that it's spinning a little out of control as I try to do these turns to slow my velocity down. That basically increases the angle of attack and in theory slows me down more quickly, and in some cases arrests my descent rate. One of the mistakes, which is easy to do, is that I forgot to change the control surface allocations for my tailplane because I moved it around. So my tailplane is associated with yaw, pitch, and roll. So the isolation of my yaw, pitch, and roll controls is pretty terrible, and that can lead to some bad situations, as old me is about to experience. Okay, high attitude is really unstable, so what I'm going to do is try firing up these engines to give me a little more control authority since they will have thrust gimballing. I expect my speed to continue slowing, but hopefully I can maintain a little more control in this high attitude. What I want to do is kind of lift the nose up a bit because my vertical speed is now about 200 meters per second. Okay, we're down to 450. Wait, come on. This thing is feeling weird. Okay, switch surface mode. Get the nose up. Get the nose. We are, of course we're stalling. That's the plan here. Thanks for telling me about the... Oh, wait, no, that's not a planned stall. That's pointing towards the ground. Bring the nose up. Okay, large scale stall. We're pulling like 3 or 4 Gs here. Not good. Okay. Come on. Get yourself level. Roll. Yeah, okay, now, come on. Roll the other way. Yes, that works. Now get yourself level. Get the nose up! Now we're at least in a controlled dive, or we're not stalling anymore, so if I can just pull out of this, I should be able... Yes, look at this. Okay, so now that was hardly a controlled stall by any means, but it did work out in the end. I did regain control by applying the engines. Not that the engines had a great deal of power, but with their help I was able to slow down, get it below the dangerous transonic region. And at this point it's pretty flyable. It's just, again, you have to be slightly careful when yawing because you're going to get rolls and things like that. So the Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez has successfully negotiated re-entry, regained control, and it's just a matter of cruising back to the Kerbal Space Center under power of those engines. With the engines just above idle, we have a nice control speed. Now, one of the things that's really good when you're approaching the runway is if you can highlight an object near the space center, you can, on the nav ball, match your velocity vector to that purple position vector, and that gives you a good idea of what your glide slope should be. If your velocity vector ends up below that, then you need to lift your nose, and if it's above that, then you can drop your nose. So I actually used that as a guideline all the way, and I kind of knew about this for a while, but this was a really long approach. Down to 100 meters per second, really nicely lined up with the runway here, although I think my approach is really far too shallow. If I had a problem at the last minute, then I would not have time to fix it. Although, to be fair, this is Kerbal Space Program, I could just probably land on any of the grass here. It's not like I would be penalized for that. There we go. Runway approaching, gear is down, first mission is highlighted. Yes, all gear deployed, just one thing to check. We don't have lights in our case, we have visual inspection. And power down, touchdown, and slow down, and everyone in mission control breathes a sigh of relief as the Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez returns safely, although it does seem to have some trouble slowing down on the runway due to wheelbarrowing. But yes, a successful mission and all, but I do not think I'll be flying that again, given its flaws. But meanwhile, 40,000 kilometers away, the crew of the Highlander are approaching their destination, Minmus, and even from this distance, it appears to have changed somewhat since the last time Kerbal set foot on it. It seems a little more glowy, seems brighter, or something about it. Perhaps it has become more cryovolcanically active since the last time they were here. Perhaps it is a seasonal feature. But those flat plateaus do seem to be a lot brighter, and it almost seems to be glowing as if from the inside. I'm pretty sure that these changes are the result of the Better Atmospheres developers, who have decided that Minmus is going to be a comet. Notwithstanding the environmental problems that would come with having a giant ball of dust and ice spewing out material into space near a habitable planet. That amount of dust being continuously dumped into the atmosphere would probably cause an ice age just through the amount of ice crystals it would cause to form in the upper atmosphere. Anyway, we're on course for landing, and old me will talk us through a very important procedure. Okay, I reckon we have 8 minutes now to do this, so now that we jettison that transfer engine, we can unlock these legs and fold them out. Technically we could have done that before, but I didn't want to cheat. So these fold out, and they provide a wider base for us to land on, basically, right? Now, the only problem is those joints aren't hugely strong, so while we are on a suborbital trajectory, we're going to send Seanlock Kerman out to add in some struts, add in some strengthening. You see we have these little compartments here which contain spare parts. Those are very useful to have around, assuming I can click on them. Okay, no, that's the wrong one. Come on, get it? Open container, thank you. Okay, strut endpoint, that's what I want. Strut endpoint, now we take it, you see it attached to his back, and no, we're trying to right click, okay, no, what the heck? I'm unable to right click on this part on his back. Something strange is going on here. This is not a time to have problems like this while we're on a suborbital trajectory. Oh, crikey. Okay, let's try putting it back in. Maybe it's a glitch. Okay, Seanlock, try putting it back in the box. Part is not compatible. Yes, no. Open container. Thank you. Now take it to the limit. No, take it. Close. Okay, try it one more time. No. I guess I have 5 minutes to fix this. It might be able to land. Okay, is it maybe that my right mouse button's broken? No, because that seems to work just fine. He really wants to do an EVA report. Yeah, that hasn't changed the situation. Nope. I'm apparently able to. It's not able to see it. Look, as I mouse over it, it's showing me the objects behind it. It's like the click detection is bust on it. Turning off EVA. Oh, maybe there's a button I can push that will make it drop or attach. Nope, nothing seems to be working. What about this? There's nothing in the toolbar. I have no idea why I would click on the toolbar. Oh, wait, hold on. It's dropped. Okay, now I want to. Oh, yeah. So G is to grab. A. Let's try attaching it. Attach. And can he attach it? Get a little closer. There, go on, stick it on there. Ah, okay, that's it. So we have to drop it. Whatever bug has happened, we're going to have to work around this. I didn't change anything. This install has not been modified in forever. I mean, I think maybe there's just too many things in space now. Maybe Kerbal Attachment System's hitting some sort of memory bottleneck or something. Oh, look, the sun is about to rise here as well. Okay, so again, no clicky. Press G, clicky, yes. Attach it on here, attach, quick, there, on you go. That will support the weight of the vehicle a little better. Now we're at 14 kilometers up and we're probably descending at about 15-20 meters per second. We have plenty of time right now. Of course, truthfully, if the situation had been unresolvable, we could have put it into a stable orbit using its onboard engines, but Why bother trying to do the safe thing when you can do the super risky thing and have fun at the same time? So we've attached all these struts. Now we need to attach their counterparts, and we're going to do this on the base of the mobile lab here. Zip it across there, and now we have a much stronger, much more viable landing leg, which should support the weight, the force of this. Strictly speaking, we're not going to get a huge amount of force on these once they're landing, but of course any object as it touches down is going to experience a much higher force as it decelerates, right? Due to just simple the collision, the transfer of momentum will induce a higher temporary gravity, and that's where you might get some weird flexing and wobbling, and I don't want this thing to be bouncing around the surface of Minmus like a giant bouncy Minmus surface thingy, because that's not as cool a name as the Highlander, is it? The Highlander's a pretty cool name. And we do it within 10 kilometers spare. And now at this altitude, it becomes really obvious that those flat areas, the plateaus that were so serene and quiet and easy to land on, now appear to have some sort of clouds on them. Oh look, there's the refueling base there. We essentially picked the first place we could find to land, and that happens to be relatively close to the refueling base, which might prove useful for a contingency. So yeah, we make some adjustments to our orbit. We've ditched a couple of items, you see them flying there. Fired the engines just to slow us down, and you can see we're 2,000 meters up, starting to slow down a little, but we're actually moving pretty fast. The clouds are getting very heavy as we get closer. It's always cool to watch things explode, especially things that aren't part of your spaceship. Okay, when's this gonna hit? 900 meters? Yeah, brilliant. Nice, making our mark on the surface. Okay, we have another one that will... I wonder if I'm going to have to start... Yeah, I better arrest my vertical velocity just a little to make sure that thing hits first. It's about 900 meters in front of me. I hope it doesn't go out of range before it hits, because that would be sad. I like to see things smash. Oh, I see a shadow! Ooh, bang. Oh, look, a bit flew off. Okay, well, now enough hanging around. Let's land this sucker. So actually I hadn't planned this particularly well, because of course I had two pieces of potential impactor debris which I didn't use. So I'm fortunate actually that that piece flew off on a suborbital trajectory, because when I land I will be able to actually collect seismic impact data. And of course the landing is relatively easy. Especially since it's on a super flat surface and I have a wide base and I have plenty of delta V to land this thing. And there we go, dropping down. 3, 2, 1. And where is my... There's the shadow. And touchdown off the Highlander on the surface of Minmus. So with that power, we're able to get the refinery to start mining ice from the surface, converting it, electrolyzing it, and hopefully producing fuel and oxidizer that we can run these engines off of. Now unfortunately, I discovered two major problems with this design. Firstly, those B9 instrument packages, they do have seismometers, but they aren't patched to do seismic logging for impactor data. Fortunately, this container has all my science instruments, including a seismometer, so I can just slap that on the side of my spacecraft. And of course, now that's secured, we can switch over to it and start logging the science data. There we go. Log seismic impact data. And once again we can feel the thrill as we watch this doomed piece of wreckage fly towards the surface. Its doom is inevitable, but as it flies towards the surface it cries out, "For science!" Yes, for science. Makes every explosion better. And back at the Highlander, we can of course feel the effects of that battle cry as it resonated through the crust of Minmus. Highlander debris impacted and we got 250 science. That's pretty darn epic. Now the second major flaw is that because of the way those fuel tanks are connected, the refinery is actually not able to transmit any fuel that it makes. So it's making fuel and basically having to throw it away. Fortunately, this other container has pipe endpoints, right? So we can attach the pipe endpoints between the tanks and the refinery just takes a moment and a bit of comical spinning around and crashing. I'm sure Seanlock would like to claim that it's something in the air, but he has his own air supply. As spooky as the atmosphere of Minmus looks, it's not actually getting into his suit just yet. So we link the two of these things. Now they won't automatically pump fuel. If we get back inside, and getting back inside isn't always that easy. But yeah, they don't automatically pump fuel, and I started to muck around to try to figure out how this worked. I knew from the mod docs that it was possible, but I couldn't figure out how. First of all, I found that I was running low on power, so I deployed the extra antenna. And now that we are certain we are making fuel, I right-click on this and find pump here, stop pumping, so I start pumping from here, and I suddenly see my oxidizer rising, so the mission is not going to have to be scrapped, at least not yet. It's not the only problem that Highlander will have to deal with, but for now we've solved all our immediate issues. Presumably by the next episode it will be refueled and ready to fly, but until then, I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.